Mr. and Mrs. Brown first met Paddington on a railway station, which was how he came to have such an unusual name for a bear. They were waiting for their daughter Judy when Mr. Brown caught sight of him sitting on an old suitcase behind a pile of mail bags. As they drew near, he stood up and politely raised his hat. "Good afternoon," he said. "Can I help you?" "Well, no," said Mr. Brown. "We were wondering if we could help you." "You're a very small bear," said Mrs. Brown. "Where are you from?" "Darkest Peru," said the bear. "I'm not really supposed to be here at all. I'm a stowaway. I came all the way in a lifeboat, and I ate marmalade. Bears like marmalade. I used to live with my Aunt Lucy, but she had to go into a home for retired bears, so I emigrated." "Oh." "Aunt Lucy always said she wanted me to emigrate when I was old enough, but now that I have, I'm not quite sure what to do next." As he bent down, the Browns caught sight of a label round his neck. It said, "Please look after this bear, thank you." It was the kind of label you couldn't possibly ignore, and in no time at all things began to happen. Mrs. Brown thought of a name for him. Paddington. And while she went off to look for Judy, Mr. Brown was put in charge of ordering some refreshments. Paddington. Paddington. "Come along, Paddington," said Mr. Brown. "I expect you're hungry after your long journey." "I am," said Paddington. "Very." Paddington had never been taken out to tea before, and he was very excited. "I don't suppose there are many bears who've been inside a buffet, Mr. Brown," he exclaimed. No," said Mr. Brown. Especially one with buns." "I think perhaps I'd better sit down." Yes," said Mr. Brown, trying hard to pretend that he had tea with a bear every day of his life. "Hello, Mrs. Brown," called Paddington as he caught sight of the others. "Don't go away. We're in here." "Watch out," shouted Mr. Brown. But he was too late. Paddington was already up to his knees in trouble. "Henry," cried Mrs. Brown, "what are you doing?" "What am I doing? Look at him. He's all covered in jam and cream. I've never seen such a mess. I don't know what the manageress will say." "Or the taxi driver," said Judy. "Taxi driver?" "Judy's right," said Mrs. Brown. "We can't leave him here, not in his present state." "Don't worry, Mrs. Brown," called Paddington. "I'll clear up the mess. Bears are good at clearing up messes." "Number 32 Windsor Gardens, please, as quickly as you can." "Not too quickly," called Mrs. Brown. "We've 2 more to come." "Is that one of them?" asked the driver. "He's covered in white stuff." "It's only cream," said Judy. "I dare say," said the driver. "But bears is 6pence extra. Sticky bears is 9pence. 9pence extra!" exclaimed Paddington hotly. He directed a hard stare at the driver. He seemed to go a funny shade of pink. "Gosh," said Judy, "how did you learn to do that?" "My Aunt Lucy taught me," said Paddington. "She said it might come in useful one day." "Mary," said Mr. Brown, "are you sure we're doing the right thing?" "That," said Mrs. Brown, "remains to be seen. I've never had a bear about the house before, but I have a feeling things may never be quite the same again." When Paddington arrived at number 32 Windsor Gardens, the first person he met was the Browns' housekeeper, Mrs. Bird. "Good afternoon," he said. "I'm from darkest Peru, and I've come to stay." "Peru!" exclaimed Mrs. Bird. "Good gracious, whatever next?" "Don't worry," called Judy. "He's going to have a bath. Hold on, Paddington, I'm just coming." "Did you say you're from Peru?" called Mrs. Bird. "Darkest Peru," said Paddington. "In that case, I'd best be getting some more marmalade in." "Fancy knowing I like marmalade," exclaimed Paddington. "Mrs. Bird knows everything about everything," said Judy. "She sounds just like Aunt Lucy," said Paddington. The next person Paddington met was Judy's brother Jonathan, and while Jonathan put some bubble mixture into the bath, Paddington listened carefully to his instructions. "There's some soap," said Judy, "and a towel, and a brush so that you can scrub your back." Paddington felt he would sooner just sit in a puddle, but he didn't like to say so. "It sounds very complicated," he announced. "Well," said Judy, "don't forget to wash your ears. They look very black." "Black?" said Paddington hotly. "Black? They're meant to be black. At least, I think they are." For a moment or two, he toyed with the idea of whitening his ears with a toothpaste, but he soon gave that up. There were other, much more interesting things to do. "What was that?" exclaimed Mr. Brown. "Perhaps it was Mrs. Bird," said Judy. "Bang went our tea by the sound of it." Unaware of the alarm he was causing, Paddington busied himself making a foam map of South America. Some of the mountains were very high indeed, and he was about to mark in darkest Peru when he suddenly remembered the bath. "What is going on?" exclaimed Mr. Brown. "Don't tell me Mrs. Bird's fallen in the washing-up water now." "That's funny," said Jonathan. "Talking of water—" "Gosh!" cried Judy. "Look!" "Paddington, he's in trouble." To say that Paddington was in trouble was to put it mildly. He tried calling out, "Help," fairly quietly, so as not to disturb anyone, and then much louder, "Help! Help!" "Paddington," said Judy, "you've still got your duffel coat on." "I didn't want to get too wet," gasped Paddington. "Only I think I have done after all." "Help! Why ever didn't you pull the plug out?" exclaimed Jonathan. "Pull the plug out?" repeated Paddington. "Nobody said anything about that." "I shall never, ever have a bath again," he said firmly. "It's much too complicated." But before he went to bed that night, Paddington did have one more go. "It's what's known as a dry bath," he announced. "It's safer than using water, and it's much less messy." The first morning in his new home, Paddington woke to the news that Mrs. Brown and Judy were taking him for a trip on the Underground. There was also a large tray of breakfast things beside his bed. So much seemed to be happening at once, he had a job deciding what to do first. So he started on the bacon. "Hurry up," called Judy. "We're going shopping and it's nearly time to leave." "Coming," cried Paddington. "I've never been on an Underground before," he announced. "I'm not sure if you'll be going now," said Judy. "Not with bacon sticking out of your suitcase like that. Look at it." "It's for emergencies," said Paddington. "Bears often have emergencies." "In fact, I think I've got one coming on now." "It's very strange," said Mrs. Brown. "I've never heard so many dogs. Perhaps it's the fine weather bringing them out." "I don't think it's the weather, Mrs. Brown," gasped Paddington. "I think it's my bacon. What's left of it." After the excitement of Windsor Gardens, Paddington found the Underground much more to his liking, and he hurried on ahead of the others. Everything seemed to have been thought of. There was a moving staircase, pictures on the wall. There was even a sign with his name on, showing which way to go. "Paddington," cried Judy, "you're going the wrong way." But it was too late. By the time he'd realized his mistake, Paddington was at the top of the stairs again. "Here," said the ticket collector. "What's all this? You haven't been anywhere yet?" "I think I must have made a mistake at the bottom," said Paddington. "Bert," called the collector, "there's a young bear here smelling of bacon. Says he's made a mistake at the bottom." "I'm sorry," said Paddington. "I'm not used to escalators. We don't have any in Darkest Peru." "Darkest Peru?" repeated the inspector. "Oh, well, in that case, you'd better get back down, but don't let me catch you up to any more tricks. You're worse than them dogs." "Shoo, go away." "There he goes again," cried Judy. "Do something, Paddington." "That," said Mrs. Brown, "was a dangerous thing to say. I think he's done it." "You again?" said the inspector. "I'll have you know escalators is for the convenience of passengers, not for the likes of young bears to play on." "It doesn't seem very convenient to me," said Paddington. "I've been here ages and I haven't got anywhere yet." "We're supposed to be going shopping," said Mrs. Brown. "That's as may be," said the inspector sternly, "but pressing the escalator stop button without a very good reason is against the rules. Persons are expected to abide by the rules." "Did you say persons?" asked Judy. "That's right, and I've got my job to do. It's bad enough being pestered by dogs." "Well, Paddington's not a person," said Judy. "He's a bear. Isn't that lucky?" Said the inspector. Well, don't let it happen again." "I think you're a very kind inspector," said Judy. "Don't you, Paddington?" "Very," agreed Paddington. "In fact," he announced, "I shall always travel from here in future. It's a very good station if you don't want to go anywhere, especially if you have an emergency on the way." Paddington had never been shopping in London before, especially at a store like Barkridge's. Equally, Barkridge's had never had a customer quite like Paddington, especially in the gentleman's outfitting department. "We would like some bear's pyjamas, please," said Mrs. Brown. "Bear's pyjamas?" repeated the assistant. "Has Madam tried something in government surplus?" "Indeed not," said Mrs. Brown. "I've never heard anything like it. Have you, Paddington?" "Never," said Paddington hotly, and he gave the man one of his special hard stares. "Yes, sir," said the assistant. "At once, sir." "He's been sleeping in his duffel coat," explained Mrs. Brown, "and we don't want that." "We certainly don't," agreed the assistant. "Would the young gentleman care for something in stripes? They're all the rage just now." "I'd sooner have something in spots," said Paddington. "If I had a pair like these, I don't think I would ever get lost, not even if I fell out of bed by mistake." "You can say that again," murmured Judy. "The changing rooms are on the right," called the assistant. "Don't go wrong." "I do hope they fit," said Mrs. Brown. "He'll be most disappointed if they don't." "So shall we all, madam," said the assistant. So far, pyjama week at Barkridge's had been a disaster. In fact, Paddington was the first customer they'd had for days. But if Barkridge's were unhappy about their pyjamas, Paddington was even more upset by the state of their changing rooms. As far as he could make out, most of the doors were locked, and when he did find one which opened, he practically had to force his way through. On the other hand, once inside, it was all very different. It was more like the inside of a house, and he was most impressed. Paddington wasn't sure how long he slept, but he was suddenly woken by a very strange noise. It sounded just like rain, but as he looked out of the window, he had yet another shock. "Well," said a voice behind him, "what are you doing in our shop window, Bear?" "Your shop window?" repeated Paddington. He suddenly wished he hadn't bought such loud pyjamas. "Oh dear," he announced to the world in general, "I think I've been recognised." But to his surprise, the manager of Barkridge's was more than delighted with all that had happened. "Bear," he boomed, "you're what we in the trade call a trend-setter. Since you went to bed in our shop window, those pyjamas have been selling like hot cakes. Look at them. They've all gone." And to show just how pleased he was, he offered Paddington anything he liked to choose in the store as a present. Paddington licked his lips. All the excitement had made him feel hungry, and he was tempted to ask for one of the hot cakes the manager had mentioned. Then he caught sight of the very thing, some Wellington boots. "I'd like a pair of these, please," he announced. "If it rains the next time I'm in bed, it'll stop the ends of my pyjamas getting soggy. That would never do, especially now you've sold out." One of the things Paddington liked most about living with the Brown family was that he made lots of new friends. The nicest one of all was Mr. Gruber. Mr. Gruber kept an antique shop in the Portobello Road, and most mornings they had their 11s together. What Mr. Gruber didn't know about antiques wasn't worth knowing, and to enter his shop was like entering another world. So when he arrived one morning and found that his friend appeared to be washing one of his pictures, he was most surprised. "Don't worry, Mr. Brown," explained Mr. Gruber. "I'm only restoring it." "So?" Paddington looked at it doubtfully. "It doesn't seem to be one thing or the other, Mr. Gruber," he said. "Ah," said Mr. Gruber, "there's more in paintings than meets the eye. You see, in the old days, Mr. Brown, artists were often so poor they had to do their paintings on top of old canvases. Sometimes if you clean a painting, you find a much more valuable one underneath. Do you realize, Mr. Brown, this could be an old master?" "It looks more like an old mistress to me, Mr. Gruber," said Paddington. Paddington turned the matter over in his mind all the way home, and by the time he reached number 32 Windsor Gardens, he was very thoughtful indeed. Mr. Brown had lots of pictures, and one of them had been standing in the front room for several days now, doing absolutely nothing. "I think," he announced to the world in general, "I may try restoring it for him. I expect he'll like that." Paddington had a hopeful nature, but as time went on, he began to get a bit worried. Far from being restored, Mr. Brown's picture looked as if it would never be quite the same again. Worse still, there was no sign of another painting underneath. It was, to say the least of it, a mess. It was only when he tried turning it round the other way that he discovered there was a label on the back. It said, "Property of Mr. Henry Brown, entry for the Portobello Road Art Society painting competition, to be collected." Mr. Brown's painting had started out as a study of some boats on a lake. Now it looked more like a storm at sea. Even with real paints, Paddington wouldn't have fancied his chances of repairing the damage, but with only tomato sauce and marmalade to work with, he had a nasty feeling there might well be an even bigger storm before the day was out. Paddington went to bed early that afternoon, suffering from a mysterious attack of something called restoritis. It was a most unusual complaint, which had caused him to come out in red and orange spots. If they looked suspiciously like tomato sauce and marmalade stains, he managed to hide the fact behind a large bowl of calves' foot jelly, Mrs. Bird's recipe for all ills. It wasn't until much later on, when he heard a strange voice downstairs, that he decided to put in an appearance again. "Remarkable use of colour," said the voice. "Most unusual, using marmalade chunks instead of paint." To Paddington's surprise, Mr. Brown's picture was occupying a position of honour in the middle of the room, and on the frame there was a large red rosette. "That means it's won first prize," explained Judy. "I didn't know you painted abstracts, Dad," said Jonathan. "I don't," said Mr. Brown, "but I'd like to abstract an answer from whoever did do it." "I was really looking for an old master, Mr. Brown," said Paddington, "but I'm afraid it went wrong." "It looks more like a young bear to me," said the judge. "And I'll say one thing, it not only looks good, it tastes good as well. Try some." "Thank you very much," said Paddington, "but I think you'll find it tastes even nicer if you stand it the right way up." Soon after Paddington went to live at number 32 Windsor Gardens, Mr. Brown decided to decorate the attic so that he could have a room of his own. But like most of his jobs, it got left half done, until one morning Paddington decided it was high time he stirred things up a bit. Paddington wasn't sure how long it took him to do the wallpapering, but he did discover one thing. Apart from making him hot, it also showed up the ceiling. The ceiling definitely needed whitewashing. "Is that you, Paddington?" shouted Mr. Brown. "Are you all right?" cried Mrs. Brown. "Yes and no," answered Paddington truthfully. The plain fact was that when he'd started work there had been a window and a door. Now there was only a window left. "Perhaps you'd better let yourselves in," he exclaimed, "wherever you are. I think I must have papered myself in by mistake." Paddington expected to be in trouble, but when he was writing his adventure down in his scrapbook that night, he suddenly found himself with several extra lots of bun money. Mrs. Brown gave him some because at long last they had to have a real decorator in, and Mr. Brown's was because he hadn't wanted to do the job anyway. "Bears," said Mrs. Bird, "always fall on their feet." "Perhaps you'd like me to decorate your kitchen for you, Mrs. Bird," said Paddington hopefully. "No, thank you," said Mrs. Bird, and she gave Paddington a little extra something too, just to make sure he didn't. One day, Paddington bought himself a camera in the market. It had a tripod, and a hood to keep out the light, and there was even a book of instructions. Altogether it seemed very good value indeed. So after taking a quick bite of a marmalade sandwich, he got ready to take his first picture. There was a very interesting chapter in the instruction book on taking action shots. But it wasn't as easy as it sounded. In the end, he decided to take a family group. It seemed much safer. "I hope he's not long," said Mr. Brown. "I've got cramp coming on." "I wouldn't move if I were you," said Jonathan. "We'd never hear the last of it," agreed Judy. "He's only got one plate." "I've only got one leg," groaned Mr. Brown. "Shh, Henry," said Mrs. Brown. "I think he's doing something." Paddington consulted his instruction book. "I have to measure the distance," he announced. "I'll use this piece of string. If I don't measure the distance properly, I shan't know how far away you are, and you may come out all blurred." "I'd sooner be blurred than have my ear pulled off," grumbled Mr. Brown. "Ooh!" "I'm afraid bears' slip knots are a bit hard to untie," said Paddington. "Anyway, I think I shall have to ask you all to move. The sun's in a different place." "Perhaps if one of us took it," said Mrs. Bird, "you could be in the picture yourself." Paddington considered the matter over a marmalade sandwich. "I shall press the shutter," he announced, "and then run round the front." "Even bears can't run that fast," murmured Mr. Brown. Paddington gave Mr. Brown a hard stare through his lens. But as he did so, something very strange happened. "What on earth's he up to now?" exclaimed Mr. Brown. "He looks as if he's practising for the ballet or something." "Mind my petunias." "Too late," groaned Jonathan. "Are you all right?" called Mrs. Brown. "I think so, Mrs. Brown," said Paddington, "except I've pressed the shutter by mistake. I'm afraid I've been having trouble with a bumblebee again. It must have been after my marmalade sandwich. Perhaps I'd better finish it before anything else happens." No one, least of all Paddington, expected his photograph to come out. But to everyone's surprise, when the plate was developed and printed, there was quite a clear picture. "Not bad," said Mr. Brown. "Not bad at all. What is it?" "Take a look in my window," said the man. Paddington hurried outside in order to see for himself. Apart from his photograph, there was a label. It said, "Picture of a bumblebee, taken by local bear, both very rare." One day, Mr. Gruber took Paddington on an outing to an auction sale. He bought a catalogue of the items to be sold, and then found a seat near the front, so that they would have a good view of all that went on. Paddington decided straight away that he liked auction sales. It was all very friendly. In fact, he hardly had time to sit down before someone waved. So he waved back.
£2.
Then another man waved.
£3 on bid.
So he waved at him too, and then raised his hat several more times for good measure.
£4 on bid. £5 over there.
"Going," called the auctioneer, pointing at Paddington. "Going, going, gone." "But I've only just got here," exclaimed Paddington. "Don't worry," said Mr. Gruber. "That's the auctioneer. He's just sold something." Paddington gave the man a hard stare. "I hope it's not that table," he exclaimed. "It must be full of dents by now." "Lot 65, one carpentry set, sold to the young bear with the sandwiches for £5. £5? exclaimed Paddington. "For a carpentry set? But I've only got 10p." Mr. Gruber reached for his wallet. "I expect it was because you waved, Mr. Brown," he whispered. "You see, if you nod your head or even scratch your nose at an auction sale, they often think it's a sign you're interested." Paddington sat very still, hardly daring to breathe, let alone nibble his sandwich, in case he bought something else by mistake. "What am I bid for this old highwayman's pistol?" called the auctioneer. "Once the property of Dick Turpin." "I think I might try for that," whispered Mr. Gruber. "I've been after one for ages." "Come along, who's going to start the bidding?" £10, called someone at the back of the hall. 11, called Mr. Gruber. 12, shouted the other man. "Oh dear," said Mr. Gruber. "I hope I don't lose it, Mr. Brown. £13. 14, shouted Paddington. "Any advance on £14? 15, shouted Paddington wildly. £15, called the auctioneer. Going, going, gone. Sold to the young bear gentleman on my right." Mr. Gruber began to feel that perhaps taking Paddington to an auction sale wasn't such a good thing after all. "Perhaps I'd better not do any more bidding, Mr. Gruber," began Paddington. "I don't think bears are very good at it." "Lot 67, a very unusual marmalade stand." Paddington hastily changed his mind. "I'd like one of those," he exclaimed excitedly. "Mrs. Bird's always grumbling because my jars get sticky." "What am I bid for this fine piece of antique silver?" "Fivepence," cried Paddington excitedly. "Fivepence," repeated the auctioneer. "Did I hear someone say fivepence?" "Sixpence," said Paddington. "If you ask me," said a voice, "that young bear knows something we don't." "Perhaps it's a fake," said another. "No one would bid sixpence if it were a real silver stand." "Going," said the auctioneer desperately. "Is that all I'm bid? Will no one make an advance on sixpence? Going, gone." "And a very good buy indeed, Mr. Brown," said Mr. Gruber later that day. "It more than makes up for the money we lost on your carpentry set and the pistol." "It more than makes up for missing our 11s too, Mr. Gruber," said Paddington happily. "Besides, I think marmalade tastes even better when it comes out of an antique, especially when it's a sixpenny one." One morning, Paddington was having breakfast in bed when he came across a very interesting article in one of his magazines. It was called "Delight Your Family and Surprise Your Friends," and it showed how to make a magazine rack. All you needed was a sheet of plywood, a hammer, a saw, and a few nails. It sounded very good value indeed. One thing the article hadn't mentioned was how to carry a sheet of plywood and a box of tools at the same time. If it had, he might not have bumped into the Browns' neighbour, Mr. Curry. "Bear!" bellowed Mr. Curry. "What are you doing, Bear?" "Do it yourself, Mr. Curry," said Paddington.
"What's that? How dare you?"
"Oh, no, Mr. Curry. I didn't mean you were to do it yourself. I meant I'm going to do it myself. I'm making a magazine rack. Look."
"Magazine rack? Yeah, I'd like a magazine rack, Bear. I'm going out now, so you can use my kitchen table to work on, but don't make too much mess. I don't like messes. If you have it ready for me by the time I get back, I may not report you for banging my nose just now."
"Thank you very much, Mr. Curry." Paddington had never actually sawn anything in two before, and he soon discovered it wasn't as easy as it looked. In fact, it got harder and harder. It wasn't until he sat down for a much-needed rest that he discovered why. Mr. Curry now had two small tables with only 2 legs each, instead of one large table with 4 legs. It was really almost beyond repair. Even covering the join with marmalade and drawing the blind couldn't disguise the fact that it was also very wobbly. Paddington decided he had an emergency on his paws. But when he stood up in order to survey his handiwork, he had yet another shock. Mr. Curry's table seemed to have shrunk. In fact, he couldn't remember ever having seen such a short table before. "Delight your family and surprise your friends," he said bitterly. Paddington was quite sure Mr. Curry would be surprised when he saw what was left of his table, but as for delighting the Browns with a magazine rack, that seemed very far away. Mrs. Bird, however, was delighted with what he'd made them. "Most useful," she said. "And how thoughtful to make 2, agreed Mrs. Brown. Yes, said Paddington, but I'm afraid they're not both for you. This one is really Mr. Curry's, but I'm not giving it to him yet. I shall leave it on his doorstep, after dark. After dark, repeated Judy. Whatever for? I can guess, said Jonathan. Look out of the window.
Bear!
Roared Mr. Curry. Well, Paddington? Perhaps I'd better make Mr. Curry a present of my tools as well, said Paddington. I don't think I shall be doing it myself again for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, announced Paddington, my next trick is impossible. At least, that's what it says in my instructions.
But you haven't done one yet,
Called Mr. Curry.
You can't have a next trick if you haven't done a first one.
For this trick, said Paddington, ignoring the interruption, I shall require an egg. Oh dear, said Mrs. Bird. Can't you use something else? No, said Paddington firmly. It definitely says an egg. I'm going to turn it into a bunch of flowers. If I can get my wand to work.
I'd sooner you turned it into an omelette, said Mr. Curry. I'm hungry.
Paddington gave the Browns' neighbour a hard stare. Mr. Curry had invited himself to the party, and the general feeling was that he'd only come for the free tea. The conjuring outfit was a birthday present from all the Brown family, and Paddington was having enough trouble as it was without Mr. Curry's interruptions. I think it's disgusting, hissed Mrs. Brown, coming to take the crumbs off a young bear's plate. He'll be lucky if he gets any crumbs off Paddington's plate. Paddington placed the egg carefully on the table and covered it with a handkerchief. I shall now say the magic words, he announced. Abracadabra. Hey presto. Bravo, called Mr. Gruber.
Very good,
remarked Mr. Curry grudgingly.
All done by sleight of paw, of course, but very good for a bear.
What's he doing with my daffodils? Asked Mr. Brown. Shh, Henry, said Mrs. Brown. I think he's about to do another trick.
Well, I wish he'd hurry up, snorted Mr. Curry. I shall have another biscuit while I'm waiting.
Do you think young Mr. Brown's all right? Asked Mr. Gruber. He's been gone rather a long time. No, cried Paddington, I'm not. It's all dark and I can't read my instructions. I think I'd better try my watch trick instead.
Good, said Mr. Curry. I'm fed up with seeing things disappear.
Perhaps I could borrow your wristwatch, Mr. Curry. You did say you wanted to see a new trick, said Judy.
And you're the only person wearing one.
Don't worry, Mr. Curry, said Paddington. It's all in my instructions. Now, I cover it with the handkerchief, so, and I hit it with the hammer. Oh dear.
Oh dear? What do you mean, oh dear? What's gone wrong, Bear?
Paddington consulted his instructions. As he did so, he saw the ominous words, For this trick, it is necessary to use a dummy watch. I think I forgot to say abracadabra, Mr. Curry, he exclaimed.
Abracadabra? I'll give you abracadabra. That was a very valuable watch. 20 jewels. Shockproof.
It doesn't look very shockproof to me, said Mr. Brown. And it's certainly not that valuable, said Mr. Gruber. I remember selling it to you 5 years ago, and you didn't pay much for it then. I think I found one of the jewels, Mr. Curry, cried Paddington excitedly.
One of the jewels, bellowed Mr. Curry. What about the other 19? I've never been so insulted in my... What's this? I'm sitting on something sticky.
Oh dear, said Paddington. That's my disappearing egg, Mr. Curry. It must have reappeared. Perhaps, said Mr. Gruber, you ought to disappear for a while, Mr. Brown. And while you're gone, I'll get Mr. Curry another watch. I've a whole box full in my shop. Thank you very much, Mr. Gruber, said Paddington. That sounds a very good idea. I don't think I shall reappear again for a long time. One day, Paddington decided to take up bodybuilding, and he sent away for a special outfit he saw advertised in one of Mr. Brown's newspapers. Although the advertisement hadn't said anything about bears' bodies in particular, there had been lots of letters from satisfied customers, and altogether it sounded very good value for £1, until he came to try it out. Paddington collapsed onto his bed and consulted the brochure which had come with the outfit. The brochure was called Mind Your Muscles, and it showed a day in the life of a gentleman called Grant Stalwart. If the pictures were anything to go by, Mr. Stalwart was able to do the most extraordinary things with his muscles. One picture even showed him cracking a walnut between his biceps. It was a bit difficult to tell with fur, but looking at his own arm, Paddington had to admit he couldn't see any muscles large enough to dent a soft-boiled egg, let alone crack walnut shells. Paddington came to a decision. Most of Grant Stalwart's pictures showed him at work outdoors, and he felt sure that if he took his outfit into the garden, he might have better luck. For a moment or two, Paddington wasn't quite sure what had happened. But before he had time to gather his senses, he had yet another shock.
Bear! What are you doing, Bear? Look at my fence, Bear! It's ruined! I've never seen anything like it.
Oh, dear, Mr. Curry, I'm very sorry. If I'd known you were there, I'd have waited until you'd gone away. I mean...
Well, Bear, what do you mean?
I was only testing my bodybuilding outfit, Mr. Curry. Perhaps you'd like to have a go. It's meant for 7 stone weaklings. There's a letter here from one just like you.
What's that? Are you calling me a 7-stone weakling, Bear?
I expect if you had a go every day, Mr. Curry, you could be an 8-stone weakling in no time at all. It's worth over £20.
And 20 pounds? Did you say 20 pounds?
Oh, yes, Mr. Curry. And Grant Stalwart says if you're not satisfied in 1 week, he'll give you your money back.
In that case, Bear, I shall write to him straight away. I'm not satisfied, and I shall tell him so. All you have to do is sign a statement saying you've given them to me. I'll do the rest. I may not even report you for breaking my fence. And if there's any change left out of the £20, I may give you 6pence for your trouble.
Paddington listened disconsolately as Mr. Curry's voice droned on. He knew from past experience when he was fighting a losing battle.
The mean old so-and-so, said Mr. Brown, when he heard all about Paddington's adventures later that day. It's not even his fence, it's ours. You're not letting him get away with it, are you? It would serve him right if he lost the £20 and had to keep the springs.
£20? Said Mrs. Bird. Who said anything about £20? I'm afraid Paddington only sent £1 deposit, so there's another 19 to pay. I've got another £19 to pay? Exclaimed Paddington in alarm. No, dear, you haven't. Mr. Curry has. The springs are his now. The most he can get back is your £1.
Well, I think Paddington ought to get his £1 back right now, just to make sure.
Hear, hear. And don't forget to read the small print next time. I shan't, Mrs. Bird, said Paddington. In fact, I shall buy a magnifying glass with my money. And if I have anything left over, I may even buy some nutcrackers. I don't think my muscles will ever be big enough to manage your Christmas walnuts. One day, Paddington was given an invitation card to watch a television quiz show called Sage of Britain. He'd never actually seen the program before, as it usually came on after he'd gone to bed, so he felt very excited when he arrived at the television studios. In fact, he was so excited, he soon got lost, which was how he came to go into the studio through the wrong door, long after the program had started.
Shh! Quiet! This way. You're on next.
And to his surprise, before he knew what was happening, someone hung an object round his neck and then pushed him towards a lighted area of the studio. Good evening. I'm Lionel Pear, the question master. How do you do? 1, 2, 3, testing. Oh! What did you do that for? You nearly blew my head off. I'm sorry, Mr. Pear. I thought perhaps you couldn't hear very well.
I can hear you perfectly well, thank you. I wear this so that the producer can speak to me. Now, I take it you know the rules of the game?" "I don't think so, Mr. Pear," said Paddington. "Well, each contestant has 2 goes, one at his favourite subject, and then there's what we call a free-for-all. 2 bites of the cherry, as it were." Paddington licked his lips. "I like cherries," he announced. Yes. Well, now, what is your special interest?" Paddington considered the matter for a moment. "Marmalade sandwiches," he said at last. "Marmalade sandwiches? I don't think we have any questions on those." "You don't have any questions on marmalade sandwiches? You could ask me where you get one at this time of night." "Well, where can you get one at this time of night?" "I don't know either," said Paddington. "I was hoping you would tell me, Mr. Pear." Lionel Pear glared across at Paddington. "Have you anything else to say before we carry on?" he asked. "May I have my points, please?" said Paddington. "Your points? What points?" "Well, you asked me about my special interest, and I said marmalade sandwiches, so I got that right. That's 10 points. Then you didn't know where I could buy any, so you lose 10. That's another 10 for me." Lionel Pear gazed at Paddington as if in a dream. He took a quick look at the studio clock and decided to plunge into the free-for-all section without further ado. "Right, you have 2 minutes to tell everyone at home what changes you would make if you were suddenly put in charge of television." Paddington settled back in his chair. He was very keen on television, and he had decided views on the subject. "To start with," he said, "I would have more programs on food. I'd have a special series on marmalade and another one on cocoa." "A series on cocoa? You can't have a whole series on cocoa." "I could," said Paddington. "I'd send an expedition to South America to show where it comes from, and I'd have another program all about getting the stains out, and in the winter I'd have a program about snowballs and another one about how to make snowmen. It's a bit difficult with paws. Then I'd have special programs for bears." "Bears? Don't you think that's something of a minority program?" Paddington gave the question master a hard stare. "Not," he said firmly, "if you happen to be another bear." "And who would look after all these programs, after all?" It was Paddington's turn to look surprised. "The children's department, of course," he replied. "They always make very good programs." "What's that? Huh? Good gracious, really? Bear, you've jammed our switchboard." "I've jammed your switchboard, but I haven't been near it." "Not you, personally. The viewers. It seems they like your ideas so much. They've all been phoning in. Not only that, but by overwhelming request, they've asked me to name you Sage of Britain. What have you got to say to that?" "Thank you very much, Mr. Pear," said Paddington. "I don't think I've ever been a sage before. Perhaps I could have my cherry now, please?" One afternoon, Paddington was making his way back to number 32 Windsor Gardens after doing the daily shopping, when he stopped by a building site for a rest and a quick snack. As he did so, he happened to glance through a nearby knothole. Paddington liked knotholes, especially ones outside building sites. You never knew quite what to expect on the other side, and for once he wasn't disappointed. In fact, he was glad he was bending down, otherwise he might have fallen over backwards with surprise at the sight which met his eyes. The men weren't at all like the usual workmen. They were much too well dressed. But by the time he'd got his opera glasses out in order to take a closer look, they had disappeared. Paddington rubbed his eyes several times in order to make sure he wasn't dreaming, and then went on his way with a thoughtful expression on his face. It was all very mysterious, and it definitely needed investigating. Paddington stayed up late that night, writing the day's events down in his scrapbook and drawing a map of the area. After carefully marking in the spot where he'd seen the men burying the box, he added his special paw mark to show that it was genuine. And after setting his alarm clock in order to make sure he was up bright and early, he climbed into bed. Soon he was fast asleep. The next day, Paddington arrived on the building site in very good time indeed, and having made sure no one was watching, he peered down into the hole.
But to his disappointment, there was nothing to be seen, and he felt very glad he'd brought a spade with him. The more he dug, the more disappointed he became. In fact, apart from a piece of an old plate, there was nothing to be found, and he was just about to stop for some much-needed breakfast when he was startled by a loud cry from somewhere nearby. "What's going on? What are you doing, Bear? That's my hole you're digging in." "I'm sorry about this, Sir Reginald. I can't think how it happened. I'll have you know this is Sir Reginald Barker, the archaeologist. He's famous for his digs." Paddington backed away. From the way Sir Reginald was jabbing his finger, he could quite see how he'd got his reputation. "Careful there. May I have a look at that, please?" "If you like, Sir Reginald," said Paddington, "but I'm afraid it's a bit old." "Old? Why, it must be early Roman if it's a day." "Early Roman?" exclaimed Paddington. "But it was fresh yesterday. Mrs. Bird wouldn't let me eat anything that old." "I'm not talking about your marmalade sandwich, Bear. I'm talking about this plate. It's just what we've been looking for. The missing piece to make up an almost perfect Roman dinner service made over 1,000 years ago. Sir Reginald and the country are grateful." "Fancy you digging up some Roman remains, Mr. Brown," said Mr. Gruber later that morning over their elevenses. "Sir Reginald said they'd been looking for it for weeks," said Paddington. "They'd given up because the builders were about to start work and they were going to bury a posterity box to mark the spot. That's what they were rehearsing yesterday." "A posterity box, Mr. Brown?" "It's a box with lots of different objects inside to show people in the future what life was like today," explained Paddington. "Sir Reginald said I could put something in myself as a reward, if I like." "How nice," said Mr. Gruber. "And at least it's cleared up the mystery for you. But a difficult task, knowing what to choose. You are welcome to anything you can see, although I'm afraid it is all antique." "Thank you very much, Mr. Gruber," said Paddington, "but I think I may leave one of my sandwiches. If they dig it up in 100 years' time, it'll probably be an even bigger mystery than the one I had to solve." Paddington came to fretwork fairly late, but once he discovered its joys, he certainly made up for lost time. He soon became quite good at cutting out shapes, and he made several pipe racks for Mr. Brown, some decorated trinket boxes for Mrs. Bird and Mrs. Brown, and some name plates, one for Jonathan and one for Judy. But it was when he turned his attention to making a jigsaw puzzle as a present for Mr. Gruber that things really started to move. According to the instructions, all you needed was a sheet of plywood, some glue, an old picture, and a rolling pin. Mr. Brown had some plywood in his shed. Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Bird were out for the day, and as luck would have it, he'd seen their neighbour, Mr. Curry, put some old paintings out by his dustbin that very morning. Paddington felt sure that anything Mr. Curry threw out must be very unwanted indeed. And soon he was hard at work. All in all, Paddington felt very pleased with his jigsaw. Some of the pieces were more difficult to fit together than others, but gradually the picture began to take shape. Mr. Curry's painting was a reproduction of the Laughing Cavalier, and although he seemed to be smiling more out of the side of his face than he had before, it was still a very good likeness. Paddington felt sure Mr. Gruber would be more than delighted when he saw it. But before he had time to do any more, he was startled by a loud knocking noise.
Can I come in, Bear? I'd like to use your telephone. I've just been robbed. And I must say it's not surprising if everyone goes out for the day.
Oh, I've been here, Mr. Curry. I've been busy making a present.
A present? That's very kind of you, Bear. Fancy you going to all that trouble just for me.
Oh, I haven't been to any trouble for you, Mr. Curry. I wouldn't. I mean...
There's no need to say another word, Bear. I like jigsaws. It's just what I need to take my mind off things. You probably won't believe this, but I stood some things outside my back door while I was decorating the hall, and someone has stolen a priceless painting.
I believe you, Mr. Curry.
Bear? What are you doing, Bear? I can't see to do my jigsaw. Funnily enough, it's not unlike... Bear! What's the meaning of this? This is my picture, Bear! Come back, Bear!
Priceless? Mr. Gruber gazed at the jigsaw. Did you say priceless, Mr. Brown? No, said Paddington. Mr. Curry did. Ah, that's different. If I'm not mistaken, this came off the lid of a chocolate box. That isn't the name of the artist in the corner. It's the manufacturer. I suggest we buy another box, Mr. Brown. Then Mr. Curry can have a new picture. You and I can share the chocolates with the family. And as for me, I really shall have something priceless. I don't suppose there are many genuine Bear's jigsaw puzzles in the world. Unless, of course, you are thinking of going into production in a big way, Mr. Brown. Oh, no, Mr. Gruber, said Paddington. If I did that, I think it might be the unkindest saw cut of them all. One day, Paddington was making his way back to number 32 Windsor Gardens when he came across a most unusual notice. It said, "Test your weight free." Paddington liked anything free, but when he climbed on the scales, he nearly fell off them again with surprise. Even allowing for the fact that he'd had an extra bun for his 11s that morning, the needle went right off the end of the dial. He was about to go on his way when he caught sight of yet another notice. This time it said, "You have a weight problem? Don't delay. Come in today." Paddington needed no second bidding, and he hurried inside as fast as his legs could carry him. "Excuse me," he announced. "I've come about my problem."
Oh, really? I'm not sure if we're taking on any bears at present. How many pounds did you have in mind?
Paddington peered inside the secret compartment of his suitcase. "I think I could manage £5, he said, "especially if I go without buns for a week."
£5? My goodness, I can see I misjudged you. You're just the sort of client we like to have. If you care to wait in the gym, I'll send our Mr. Constantine to see you. You might like to start off with one of his pummels before he shows you the ropes.
Paddington licked his lips. "I think I'd like 2, please," he announced.
2 of Mr. Constantine's pummels? Are you sure?
"Quite sure," said Paddington firmly.
Gracious me.
Paddington had never been inside a gymnasium before, but he decided he liked it very much indeed. In fact, it was so comfortable, he was soon fast asleep, and quite unprepared for Mr. Constantine's arrival.
Yeah. He's good, no?
"No!" yelled Paddington.
You do not like my pummels? I thought you were going to have 2 lots. I try again.
"No, thank you," cried Paddington. "I'd sooner you showed me the ropes, if you don't mind."
The ropes? Aha! You mean our special exercise machine? Please to climb on and fasten the belt around your middle. I will show you. That is good. I press the switch. So.
"Oh!" cried Paddington. "Help! Help!"
Good, good. After this, you will have the hot steam bath treatment, followed by the ice-cold plunge.
"Oh! Help! Let me out!"
I'm afraid you can't stay there. Someone may trip over you. Perhaps you'd like your lunch now? Yes, please. I'd like that very much, thank you. Well, mind you don't spill any. We don't allow seconds. Seconds? Exclaimed Paddington. I haven't even had any firsts yet. Think yourself lucky. You've got carrot juice, said the receptionist. Some people only get hot water. £5, exclaimed Paddington bitterly. £5 for a pummel and a spoonful of carrot juice? I didn't mean £5 in money. I meant £5 in weight. Besides, this is a health centre, not an hotel. Doesn't sound very healthy to me, said Paddington. It doesn't sound very healthy at all. Paddington gave the scales a very hard stare as he came out of the building. And then he made a surprising discovery. His weight was back to normal. But with his shopping basket on wheels, the needle went off the dial again. I think, he said, addressing the world in general, they ought to have scales in every street. People might not spend so much on their shopping then. And he dipped his paw into a large jar of marmalade and ate some, just to even things up a bit. There was only one thing Paddington liked better than a quiet read in the garden over a marmalade sandwich. That was a quiet read over 2 marmalade sandwiches. And one afternoon he was doing just that when he came across a very interesting magazine article about pruning. It was called Clippings from My Hedgerow, and the author, Ebenezer Hawthorne, had lots of pictures of bushes he'd pruned over the years into unusual shapes. Some looked like horses, others were like elephants, and on the front cover there was even a photograph of a giant peacock, with an announcement saying there would be a prize for the reader who sent in the best picture of his or her effort. It didn't say anything about bears taking part, but Paddington decided he would very much like to have a go, just as soon as he could summon the effort to get out of the hammock. As he set to work, he found to his disappointment that Mr. Brown's shrubs were either very spindly or so short they wouldn't even have made a hedgehog, let alone one of Mr. Hawthorne's elephants. In the end, he made a passing snip at a larger bush near the fence, and almost at once he wished he hadn't. Bear! What are you doing now, Bear? Something hit me on the head. I might have known it was you. I'm very sorry, Mr. Curry. It's only topiary. I was just trying my paw at it. Toe parings? How dare you throw toe parings over my fence, Bear? Not toe parings, Mr. Curry. Topiary. That's quite a different thing. It's to do with cutting bushes. Look, I was going to make a peacock, just like that. Only I'm afraid I can't find the right sort of bush. A peacock? Didn't know you went in for that sort of thing. Bears are good at that sort of thing, Mr. Curry. And there's a prize for whoever sends in a photograph of the best one. Yes, well, watch what you're doing. Did you say there's a prize for the best one? Yes, Mr. Curry. Mr. Hawthorne is judging it himself. I wouldn't mind a peacock in my garden, Bear. Just so happens there's a shrub in the middle of the lawn that needs pruning. Mind you, not a word to anyone. But if we win a prize, I might go shares with you. You can start right away, and I go and buy a film for my camera. Thank you very much, Mr. Curry. At first sight, Mr. Curry's bush had all the signs of being very promising indeed. Paddington had never seen such a large bush, and it was positively crying out for a trim. In fact, he rather wished he'd chosen to make an elephant instead of a peacock, for there was more than enough material. Gradually, the pile of clippings at his feet grew larger and larger until it was almost as large as the bush itself. It was really very satisfying. Paddington could see why Mr. Hawthorne likened it all to giving someone a haircut, with first the styling and then the snipping off bits here and there in order to make it perfect. As he stood back to view the result of his handiwork, he felt very pleased indeed. Although it might not have taken in another peacock who happened to be passing, it did look very like the picture on the cover of the magazine. It was as he set to work tidying the loose ends up that disaster suddenly struck. Help! 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 Paddington!
cried Mrs. Brown. "Are you all right?" Paddington rubbed his eyes. "I think so," he announced. "I've been having trouble with a peacock. At least, I think I have." "A peacock?" The Browns looked at each other. Sometimes there was no telling quite what was going on in Paddington's mind. "Perhaps you'd better go to sleep again," said Judy. "We'll set the hammock up again." Paddington considered the matter for a moment. "If you don't mind," he said at last, "I think I would sooner go indoors. Mr. Curry's due back in my dream any moment now, and I'd rather not be there when he arrives. Thank you very much." One day, Mr. Brown decided to take everyone to the theatre as a treat, and he reserved a box so that he could get them all in. Paddington had never been to the theatre before, and he sniffed the air excitedly as he hurried on ahead of the others. It had a nice, warm smell, and everyone seemed very friendly and helpful. "Would you like a programme, sir?" "Yes, please," said Paddington. "I'll have 6, if I may." "Thank you, sir. And will you be having coffee in the interval?" Paddington licked his lips. "Yes, please," he announced. "I'll have 6 of those, too." "Very good, sir. That'll be £5. £5? Help! Oh, dear, Paddington, I think you've lost your marmalade sandwich. Look." "Must you bring sandwiches to the theatre?" asked Mr. Brown. "You've only just had supper." "It's all right, Mr. Brown. I've got some more in my suitcase." "That," said Mr. Brown, "is not what I meant." But Mr. Brown's words went unheeded as the curtain rose and they settled back to enjoy the show. The evening was a tribute to Cecily Bloom, the famous actor, who was performing pieces from his repertoire. The first item on the programme was a piece of Victorian melodrama in which he played the villain. As far as Paddington could make out, the luckless heroine seemed to spend most of her time either tied to a railway line in the face of the 6:20 from Euston, or about to part company with herself in the local sawmill. He gave Cecily several hard stares through his opera glasses. But either he was too far away, or something happened as they passed through the lens, for they had little or no effect. Cecily was adamant, and despite the snow and the pleas from the heroine, it was clear from the expression on his face as the curtain came down that he felt he had won the day. "Oh, dear," said Mrs. Brown, "I do hope the second half is a bit more cheerful." "I hope he's a bit better at remembering his lines," said Mr. Brown. "He was making half of that up. It's readings from Shakespeare next. He's a famous playwright." "Oh, gosh, where's Paddington got to?" "Perhaps he's gone for an ice cream," said Jonathan. "Perhaps," said Mrs. Bird, and then again, "Perhaps not. Knowing that bear, it's anyone's guess where he might be." Cecily Bloom looked at Paddington in amazement. "Would you mind repeating that, bear?" he boomed. "I've come to tell you to take back your daughter," exclaimed Paddington. "It's snowing hard and she hasn't got a duffel coat. If you like, I expect Mr. and Mrs. Brown would take her in. I expect..." Having delivered his ultimatum, Paddington waited for the storm to break. But to his surprise, Cecily, who had been looking very gloomy until then, suddenly brightened. "My dear bear, this is the nicest thing that's happened to me in years. The fact that you actually believe what you've just seen. To tell you the truth, I've been having a little trouble with my lines. The prompter's been taken ill, and I suppose you wouldn't like to do me a favor, would you?" Mr. Brown gazed at the slip of paper the usherette had given him. "I have been given a very important job, signed Paddington." What can it mean? But the Browns didn't have long to wait for an answer. As the curtain went up, Cecily began his famous recital from Hamlet. "To be..." "Or not to be, Cecily," called Paddington. "Thank you, Bear. To be... or not to be, Cecily. That is the question." "No, it isn't," whispered Mr. Brown. "The question is, how does Paddington get away with it?" "That," said Mrs. Bird, "is something even Shakespeare would find hard to answer." One morning, Paddington was on his way to the bank when he heard a strange hissing noise. Excuse me, sir. You're not going in there, are you? I was, said Paddington. I'm going to put some savings into my account. Oh, it's a good job I caught you in time. Between you and me, all's not well with Floyd's. All's not well with Floyd's? Exclaimed Paddington. You want my advice, sir? You'll put your money in oil. Put my money in oil, repeated Paddington. Won't it get dirty? Dirty? Did you say dirty, sir? Do you realize what you're standing on at this very moment? A lot of people might think that had dripped from a car. They don't realize it's seeping up through the ground, under their very feet. I tell you, sir, anyone who buys a share in the Portobello Road Oil Company is going to make a fortune. The Portobello Road Oil Company, repeated Paddington. Don't think I've ever heard of that before. Not many people have, sir. Not many people have. Look, how much money did you say you were putting in the bank? £5. I've been saving it out of my bun money. It's for Christmas and birthday presents. Tell you what, this share is really worth £10, but seeing as how I've taken a liking to you, I'll let you have it for £5. Paddington considered the matter for a moment. It's very kind of you, he said, but I don't know that I want to spend all my money. I want some left over for presents. My dear sir, you look like a bear of the world. You must know about oil. By the way things are going, by this time tomorrow, you'll have so much interest, you won't know what to do with it all. Why, look, you're seeing the Portobello Road as it is for the last time. Soon it'll be full of derricks. But don't forget, not a word to anyone. And I shouldn't hang around here too long. You might be caught by a gusher, and your whiskers will get all blackened. See you tomorrow. Paddington spent the rest of that day hopefully drilling holes in the garden at number 32 Windsor Gardens, but either the oil had confined itself to the Portobello Road, or Mr. Brown's drill bit wasn't long enough, for there was no seepage to be seen anywhere, let alone any sign of a gusher. He was up bright and early the next morning, and as soon as breakfast was over, he hurried back to the spot where he'd met the man with the shares.
Excuse me, sir. Can I help you?
I was looking for a derrick, said Paddington.
Derrick? No, I don't know any derricks. Quite a few Tom, Dick, and Harrys. No. If you want my advice, you'll be on your way. We're looking for one of them right now. Oily Harry. He's been selling dud shares. You all right, sir? Yeah. What's this? The Portobello Oil Company. Blimey! I knew he was a master of disguise, but this is ridiculous.
Mr. Gruber held Paddington's share up to the light.
I must say this is a very good piece of forgery, he said. How much did you pay for it?
£5, said Paddington, and I nearly got arrested by mistake.
I'll give you £6 for it, Mr. Brown.
£6? But the policeman said it wasn't worth the paper it was written on.
Maybe not, Mr. Brown, but there's a good market for anything unusual, and a bear's oil share, even a dud one, must be worth quite a lot. You see, I shall dispose of it before the week's out.
Paddington considered the matter for a moment over his bun. I think, he announced at last, I shall put all my money into unusual things in future. It's a lot safer than oil, and it's much cleaner. One morning, Paddington was testing some raspberries in order to make sure they were properly ripe, when he heard a loud banging coming from next door.
Ooh! Go! Go!
To his surprise, the Brown's neighbour came rushing out of his house and began dancing round his lawn like someone doing the Lancers. In fact, he moved so fast it was hard to keep up with him.
Bear! What are you doing, Bear? You're spying on me again?
Oh, no, Mr. Curry. I was only watching you practice your dancing. It was very good. I mean...
Dancing? Dancing? I'll give you dancing, Bear. I've just hit my thumb with a hammer. Look, I think I may have broken it.
Mr. Brown's got one in his garage, said Paddington. I'll get it for you if you like.
I don't mean the hammer, Bear. I mean my thumb.
Oh, dear. Perhaps you'd like some marmalade, Mr. Curry. My Aunt Lucy always puts marmalade on bruises.
Marmalade? Ah, I don't need marmalade. What I need is help. What are you like at hammering, Bear?
Oh, bears are good at hammering, Mr. Curry. I expect it's because they haven't got thumbs.
I'm putting a serving hatch in my kitchen. I need a hole knocked in the wall to the dining room.
Oh, that'll be easy, Mr. Curry, said Paddington. I watched Mr. Brown make his hatch only last week. He said you'd probably want one yourself, as soon as you got to hear about it. I mean...
Now remember, Bear, I want one exactly like Mr. Brown's. There's a hammer and chisel, all ready, and the frame's ready for fixing. If you make a good job of it while I'm at the doctor's, I may let you have first go with the doors.
Oh, dear, said Mrs. Brown. Look where Paddington's just gone. I hope that's not a sign we're in for more trouble. Anything's better than all that hammering, said Mrs. Bird. If I hear one more bang, I shall go mad. Mrs. Bird's hopes were doomed, however, for if anything, the noise got steadily louder as time went by. But if the noise outside Mr. Curry's house was bad, things inside were even worse. Clouds of dust billowed everywhere. In fact, it was so bad, Paddington had to spend most of the time working with his eyes closed, only coming outside for air every now and then, when he could stand it no longer. At long last, the job was finished, and as the dust settled, the big moment came to put the frame into place over the hole. To Paddington's delight, it fitted like a glove. In fact, as he stood back to view the result of his labours, he couldn't remember ever having done a job which had gone quite so well. It was straight as a die, firmly fixed, and as for the doors, they opened like a dream.
Bear! You know what you've done, Bear? You knocked a hole in the wrong wall.
Help! Paddington went to bed early that evening. I think I may be getting the measles, he announced. My temperature is 120 and I'm covered in spots. That's not a temperature, said Mrs. Bird. It's a marmalade stain. And the spots look more like brick dust to me. I still don't see how you picked the wrong wall, said Judy. It's because he forgot that although Mr. Curry's house is the same shape as ours, it's the opposite way round. Ooh. Paddington gave a groan at the memory of it all. I think I have something that may make you feel a little better. It's 5p from Mr. Curry. 5p? He says it's because he's so pleased with the new delivery hatch you've made him. I bet it's because he thinks he's gone one better by having something we haven't got. Perhaps, said Paddington, you'd like a delivery hatch too, Mrs. Bird? It'll be tit for tat. No, said Mrs. Bird. Tit for tat it may be, but bang for bang is another matter entirely. We've had quite enough of those for one day. Thank you very much. Adrian, Crisp, garden ornaments, said Mrs. Bird. What on earth is that bear up to now? I found this under his bed this morning. Looks as if it's been torn out of a magazine. Perhaps it's to do with the new patio Mr. Gruber's been building, replied Mrs. Brown. He said something about wanting to buy a finishing touch for it when he came in last night. If Paddington's got anything to do with it, finishing touch could be the right description. Mrs. Bird held strong views about Paddington's goings-on, but luckily for her peace of mind, his present ones were taking place quite a long way from home. Paddington had a determined look in his eye, one which had been there ever since his friend, Mr. Gruber, had shown him his new patio. Over the years, Mr. Gruber had been very kind, and it seemed a good chance to try and repay him. Looking round Mr. Crisp's emporium, Paddington decided there were some very good finishing touches indeed. One in particular caught his eye. "Excuse me, Mr. Crisp," he announced. "I'd like to buy one of those lions, if I may." "A lion? Oh, my goodness, how nice. That'll be £200. £200 for a lion? But it's made of stone. You could get a real one for that." "I dare say, but these lions happen to have come from a stately home. They are simply steeped in history." Paddington took a closer look at one of the lions. It certainly appeared to have been steeped in something, but he was much too polite to say so. "How much were you thinking of paying?" asked Mr. Crisp. "I was thinking of 10p," said Paddington. 10p? Don't strain your resources, will you? I suppose I might be able to find you one or two old bricks. Or you could have that ball you're sitting on." Paddington considered the matter for a moment. "What is it?" he asked. "For 10p, said Mr. Crisp. "You don't ask questions like that. And I'm afraid you'll have to arrange your own transport." "That's all right, Mr. Crisp. I've brought a bag. I expect I can manage. It will..." That was Mrs. Bird's best carrier bag. Oh my. I'll see if I can find you some brown paper. There's a bus stop just outside. If you hurry, you may just catch one. Oh, dear. "Fancy you going to all that trouble just for me," said Mr. Gruber. "I wish I'd seen the expression on the conductor's face." "I wish I hadn't," said Paddington. "I had to carry it in the end, and I think I may have strained my resources. I don't suppose there are many bears who've taken a boulder on a London bus, Mr. Brown, let alone an early Roman cocoa stand." "An early Roman cocoa stand?" exclaimed Paddington. "Well, perhaps not Roman exactly, but it's certainly very old. And not even Julius Caesar himself could have had a nicer finishing touch for his patio. Or one that makes his 11s taste better." One day, Paddington decided to visit the bargain basement of a large store near Windsor Gardens. According to Mr. Gruber, all sorts of things went on there, and it sounded very good value indeed. The only trouble was, having short legs made it hard to see what was going on. "Look at that! Only one rub with the instant one dab cleaner, and already this piece of carpet looks like new. Won't someone buy a bottle? I'm not asking £1. I'm not even asking 50p. All I ask is 10p for a giant economy bottle. It not only cleans carpets, it cleans sinks, furniture, floors, anything you care to name. Take this piece of old felt, for instance. Have you ever seen a dirtier, filthier object than that? And yet with one, well, perhaps 2 dabs of instant cleaning fluid, it'll come up like new. Ladies, what's this? Help, it's my hat you've got there. Your hat? I beg your pardon, sir. I didn't realize anyone was wearing it. I was only trying to get rid of your stains." "My stains?" exclaimed Paddington. "Those aren't ordinary stains. Some of them have been handed down." "Handed down? You can't hand a stain down." "Bears do," said Paddington firmly. "Some of them belong to my uncle in darkest Peru." "Well, if you want to hand them down any more, I suggest you hop it. This is very powerful stuff, and if the cork comes out accidentally, I shan't answer for the consequences." But Paddington had already gone. There was another demonstration nearby, which sounded much more interesting. Ladies, how many times have you broken a fried egg in the morning? How many omelettes have you ruined at lunchtime? And have you ever kept count of the number of times your pancakes have stuck to the pan? Never again. Go home today and throw your old pans in the dustbin. Buy one of my magic non-stick frying pans, and nothing, ladies, I repeat, nothing will ever stick again. Why, it's so simple even a child of 5 could do it. You, sir, show the ladies how to do it. Stand back, everyone, while the young gentleman with the whiskers shows you all how easy it is. Thank you very much, said Paddington. I might buy one for Mrs. Bird. She's always grumbling about her pans. There you are, my first sale of the morning. Fancy all you ladies being put to shame by a bear. I can see you know your frying pans as well as your onions, sir. Now, just a quick flick of the paw, and don't forget to catch it on the way down. Here, what have you done with it? That is my demonstration pancake. It's... Oh! Oh, dear, I'm in trouble again. Paddington stared at the man in the dark suit in amazement. He'd fully expected to be in trouble, but to his surprise, everyone seemed very pleased with him.
Congratulations, Bear, said the man. Non-stick frying pans have never been our most popular line. As for cleaning fluid, look at them both. All the people who are watching the cleaning fluid demonstration want to buy a non-stick frying pan, and all the people who are watching the frying pan demonstration are buying cleaning fluid. Roll up! Roll up! Come and have your pancake stains removed here.
Perhaps, said Paddington, I could do a special demonstration of my own. It's quite easy, really. All you need is a marmalade sandwich and a frying pan. Then you toss the sandwich into the air, and...
Oh, roll up, roll up. Come and see a bear's marmalade sandwich being removed. Only demonstration of its kind in the whole of London.